Would you like to learn how to make haggis pie with whiskey cream sauce? Stay tuned to the next episode of Hilltop Stovetop. Hello and welcome back to Hilltop Stovetop, the show where we're teaching you how to make great meals in an ordinary kitchen. Today's episode is specially dedicated to my editor, Jim Austin, who ever since we started doing this, I think it's 93 episodes ago, has been saying to me over and over again, every time there's an event on the Scottish calendar, you know, Robbie Burns Night or St. Andrew's Day, he's saying to me, Ellen, when are you going to make haggis? Well, I've been looking at haggis recipes and I've been looking at haggis instructions, and as much as I like haggis, it's really not something that is in my area of expertise to make. But then I started realizing that there's a lot of things that once you've got your haggis, you can make other things with it. And I discovered that you can actually buy haggis online. You know, you can get anything online these days. So I've got myself here some canned haggis. And today we're going to be making haggis pie. And this covers all the bases. It's got turnips, or neeps, as Jim would call them. Also known as Swedes or rutabagas, and we've got potatoes or tatties, and we've got some puff pastry that I just bought, the frozen puff pastry, you know, my favorite thing, all ready to go in the tins here, and then our canned haggis. Now, if you like haggis, you're going to love this recipe. If you think you don't like haggis, give it a try, because really it's no different than if you went to some fancy French restaurant and had pâté. It's a very, very similar flavor. There is, I mean, if you know what's in it, that's great. I'm not going to get into that, but it really is quite tasty stuff. And you can use it for all kinds of things. I've seen recipes for haggis nachos, for haggis on pizza, for haggis in a stuffed potato, any number of places that you would normally use ground beef and spices, or even ground sausages. And if you like the idea of what we're doing here, but you don't want to do the haggis, just take some ground beef, add some onions, fry it up with lots of salt and pepper. You can put that in the bottom of the pie and it'll do the same thing, or similar thing. It won't be quite the same taste. The other thing is that I'm making these in muffin tins, so these are going to be more of an appetizer size, but you could make this as a, you know, like a 3-inch pie tin, so that would be like an individual serving, or you could make it in a big pan, almost like a shepherd's pie. So I'm going to get busy here, peel my potatoes, peel the turnip, and we're going to get those on to cook, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back. The potatoes and the turnip, or neeps and tatties, are on the stove simmering away. We're going to cook those until they're soft so that we can mash them. And in the meantime, we're going to open up our can of haggis here, which I'm sure won't be quite as good as the fresh stuff that I've had in the past, but it'll be pretty good. I mean, this is a well-known brand. And we're going to warm it up a little bit. This has got everything in it that we need. It's got the onions and it's got the spices. So all we're going to do is just put it in the frying pan and warm it up, because it does. You want the, I don't know, you want the flavors to be well blended, and you want it to be nicely browned for the purposes of this. And so once we get this out of the can, we'll get that done up. Now on the can, it says to heat it up on the stove or in the microwave, but it does say for a real Scottish flavor, add a wee dram of whiskey before serving. So I do have a wee dram near at hand. I am going to do part of it with whiskey and part of it without, just for a change in flavor, and in case there's somebody that's going to taste these that would rather not have the whiskey in it. But for those who like the whiskey, it's going to be awesome. And then also, once we've got these in the oven, we're going to be putting together a whiskey cream sauce to serve with it. So this is quite thick, as you can tell. There we go. So we're going to fry this up. We want it broken up into little pieces, and we'll see you when this is done. And it actually smells really good. We'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so we're back, and our haggis has warmed up and gotten really toasty. By browning it like this, it really brings out the toastiness of all the oats that are in this. And that's a big part of what makes haggis so unique. So I've taken out some off to the side so that those that don't want a dram of whiskey in theirs will have an option. But I've got a little bit here, and I'm just going to add that in here to enhance the flavor. Make sure you stand back because that is powerful on the eyes. But that's going to be just beautiful. And I am going to turn it off now and let this cool just a little bit. I don't want it to be cold when it goes in there because then the pastry has to heat up the filling and itself before the pastry actually starts to cook. And so by having it slightly warm, that will make our pastry a little bit flakier. So we're just going to set this off to the side. Our neeps and tatties are almost ready to go, so we'll be back in just a moment with those. Okay, so we're going to start off with our potatoes, and they are nice and well cooked so that they're going to mash easily. We're going to add in some butter and a little bit of milk. And if you wanted to, you could add some heavy cream instead of the milk. Now, I don't happen to have any heavy cream, although that is something that we're going to need for our sauce. So we'll talk about that in a minute, about what I'm going to substitute in that. Now, I am going to add, this is what I want to add. I want to add a little bit of salt. Yay, I'm remembering. And we want these to be really, really smooth. And then we're going to add in some grated cheese, and that's going to make it so that when we've got these in the oven, that's going to really help it to make it nice and brown and golden topping on these. So we'll set this off to the side, and then we'll get ready to start on the turnips. Okay, so now our neeps are ready to go, and we want to make sure that these are well cooked. So if you stick a knife into it, they should, the knife should just go through and shake off really easily. And so again, we're going to add some butter to these. And then the other thing I like to do, this is my personal preference, I like a little bit of nutmeg in my turnips. So I've just got some fresh nutmeg here. And you might want to put salt or pepper in, whatever is your own taste for turnips. And then we're going to mash those up well. And if you don't have a potato masher like this, because these are nice and soft, you could actually use your mixer to do it. There we go. So now we're ready to start putting these things together. So what we do is we're going to start with a little bit of haggis in the bottom of each cup. And actually, I want to do this with haggis. It would be quite all right. I mean, I guess if you wouldn't be a haggis pie, but you could do it with ground beef and some onions and salt and pepper. And then you're going to put in a spoonful of neeps. Smush that down. And then a spoonful of your tatties or mashed potatoes with the cheese in them. Cover that all up. And there we go. So now I'm going to fill up the rest of these, and when they're all done and ready to go in the oven, we'll be back. Okay, so we've got them all put together. The ones that I made that didn't have whiskey mixed in with the haggis, I've put a little X on the top of those ones so we don't mix them up. Now I'm going to pop these in the oven 400 degrees because we are dealing with puff pastry. 400 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. I know the recipes that I've seen that are made with a little bit bigger pie were about 30 minutes, but we're going to do 25. And while these are cooking, we're going to get busy and make our whiskey cream sauce. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to make our sauce. And what I have in the pot here is some chicken broth. I started off with about 2 cups of chicken broth, and it's been simmering on the stove while we were doing all the rest of the things, so that the volume is reduced to at least half of what it was, maybe even a little bit less than half. And then we're going to add in, we're just going to add in some whiskey, and it calls for heavy cream, and it's important that you make it with heavy cream because that's what, if you just tried to make it with milk or something, that's when you're going to end up with things separating on you. So heavy cream is important, but I didn't happen to have any heavy cream. And right now in Winnipeg, we're in the midst of a blizzard, and I'm not about to go out to the store just for the sake of getting some heavy cream. So what we're going to do here, the difference between heavy cream and other milk is that cream has a lot more fat in it. So we've got 1/4 cup of melted butter, and to that I'm going to add 3/4 cup of milk, which is going to, of course, make it so that the butter isn't as melted, but that makes it kind of chunky, but it has the same effect. And yeah, you see how I ended up with a bunch of butter in there. But we're going to mix that in to our chicken broth. And then we're going to add in a good whack of whiskey. Now, some of the recipes that I saw for this, it was nothing but whiskey and cream. There was no chicken broth in it at all. But and in those cases, what they did was they took the probably a cup of cooking whiskey and flambéed it so to get rid of the alcohol and reduce the volume. And then added the cream to it. But I think that this will be a good mix, and it'll have a little bit more, I think a little more balanced flavor. And we're going to let this simmer away, and it will continue to thicken as well. So by the time our little pies are out of the oven, we should have a nice, rich sauce to go with them. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Don't those look lovely? So we've got nice and crispy brown on the top, and we've got flaky pastry. We've got our sauce here ready to go as well. And one thing I forgot to mention, there's always something that you forget, and that is that you're supposed to put some mustard in this. So I've got some Dijon mustard and a good bit of mustard. I probably put about 1/4 cup of mustard into that, and that really supercharges it. So let's dish these out and see what we have here. I think there we go. Like I said, this size is would be good as an appetizer, or you can do what I'm doing in here and have 2 of them as your main course. And I'm going to cut one of them in half so you can see what they're like. We've got the turnip, we've got the haggis, we've got the potatoes, and now we're going to take our pot here and add a little bit of our beautiful sauce. I'm just going to pour it over the bottom here so that we still get to see what we've got happening there. And there we have it, haggis pie. So this is for you, Jim. Thank you very much for all the work you've done, and I hope that you'll get to have some too. I hope that everybody gets a chance to taste this, And thank you for joining us today on Hilltop Stovetop, where we have made this haggis pie. And we look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Bye-bye for now.